The heating unit rattles like something broken trying to fix itself. The same metallic wheeze it's made every night since September. I've gotten used to it by now, the way you get used to anything that refuses to change. It's past midnight, and the dorm hallway has settled into that particular kind of quiet that only exists in institutional buildings after hours. Not peaceful, exactly, but resigned. The fluorescent light under our door has been flickering for 3 days, casting uneven shadows that dance across the ceiling when I turn the right way. I'm lying on my side, phone screen glowing against my face, scrolling through nothing important. The blue light makes everything feel distant and unreal, like I'm watching my own life through glass. My biology textbook sits closed on a nightstand, tomorrow's quiz forgotten in favor of this meaningless ritual of procrastination. The blanket is pulled up to my shoulders, and I can feel the cold seeping through the thin walls of Morrison Hall, the way it always does once November settles in for real. Caleb's bed is 3 feet away, close enough that I can hear him breathing in his sleep when the heating unit takes a break from its mechanical complaints. 3 feet might as well be 3 miles for all the good it does me. His breathing is steady and deep, the kind of sleep I haven't managed in weeks. I envy him that, the way he can just let go, trust that tomorrow will sort itself out. The mattress dips without warning. I startle, my phone nearly slipping from my hands as the familiar weight settles beside me. In the dim glow of my screen, I see Caleb's profile, his dark hair falling across his forehead the way it always does when he hasn't bothered to brush it back. His eyes are half closed, still heavy with sleep, but there's something deliberate in the way he moves, something that tells me he's more awake than he's pretending to be. I'm freezing, he mutters, and his voice carries that rough edge it gets when he first wakes up. Already he's tugging at my blanket, pulling it over himself with the kind of casual assumption that makes my chest tighten. Your bed's warmer. The words hit me like cold water. Not because they're untrue. My bed is closer to the window, which should make it colder, but somehow it never is. Maybe it's something about how I curl up, trapping heat in the small space I occupy, or maybe it's just what he needs to tell himself. I don't know, and in this moment, I don't care about the logic of it. His skin brushes against my arm as he settles in, and it is cold, shockingly so, like he's been standing outside in the November wind instead of sleeping 4 feet away. The contact sends something electric through me, a jolt of awareness that makes every nerve ending suddenly, desperately awake. I can smell the faint scent of his shampoo, something clean and uncomplicated that I've grown to associate with home in ways I don't want to examine too closely. I stiffen, every muscle in my body going rigid as I try to process what's happening. We've been roommates since August, 3 months of careful boundaries and unspoken rules. 3 months of learning to navigate the space between friendship and whatever this feeling is that lives in my chest, expanding and contracting like something with its own heartbeat. Our beds have always been separate territories, marked out as clearly as countries on a map. His space, my space, the narrow stretch of industrial carpeting that divides them. But now Caleb is pressed against me, his shoulder touching mine, his leg thrown casually over the blanket in a way that traps us both underneath. He sighs with relief, the sound soft and satisfied, and I feel it more than hear it, a small vibration against my ribs that seems to settle into my bones. Already closing his eyes, he shifts closer like it's the most natural thing in the world. Like we've done this 100 times before instead of never. Like the 3 feet between our beds was always just a suggestion, easily ignored when circumstances require it. The casual way he does it is what undoes me. No hesitation, no awkward explanation, just the simple assumption that this space belongs to him too. I can't move, can't breathe properly. My heart is pounding so hard I'm certain he can feel it through the mattress, through the thin fabric of my t-shirt, through whatever small distance still exists between us. The sound of it fills my ears, drowning out the heating unit, drowning out everything except the awareness of him beside me. This could be a joke. Caleb is always joking, always finding ways to push boundaries just to see what happens. It could be habit. Maybe this is something he did with roommates before me, something so normal to him that he doesn't think twice about it. Maybe I'm the one making it strange by lying here frozen, by reading meaning into something as simple as shared warmth on a cold night. Or maybe this is the beginning of something that will change everything. The thought terrifies me more than I want to admit. For months, I've been so careful to keep my feelings locked away, to treat our friendship like something fragile that could shatter if I held it wrong. Caleb is everything I'm not, spontaneous where I'm planned, confident where I'm cautious, comfortable in his own skin in ways I can only imagine. He moves through the world like he belongs in it, like it was made to accommodate him, and somehow he's chosen to share this small space with me. I've spent so many nights lying in my own bed, listening to him breathe, wondering what it would feel like to close that distance between us. Wondering if he ever lies awake thinking the same things, or if I'm just another convenience in his life, like the mini fridge we share or the shower caddy he borrows when he forgets his own. Now I know what it feels like, and it's nothing like what I imagined. It's warmer, more solid, more real than any fantasy I've constructed in the space between sleep and waking. His presence changes the entire geometry of the bed, makes it feel both smaller and more expansive at the same time. The boundaries of my body seem less certain with him pressed against me, like I'm dissolving at the edges where we touch. He's already settling into sleep, his breathing beginning to deepen and slow. One arm is flung across his chest, the other resting against the mattress between us, his fingers close enough to mine that I could touch them without really moving. His face has gone soft and unguarded in the way it only does when he thinks no one is watching. I lie perfectly still, afraid that any movement will wake him, will force us both to acknowledge what just happened. Afraid that he'll realize this was a mistake and retreat back to his own bed, back to the safety of those 3 feet of space. Afraid that he'll stay, and I'll have to figure out what that means. The heating unit gives another rattling wheeze, and Caleb shifts slightly in his sleep, moving closer rather than away. His hand brushes against mine, and I have to bite my lip to keep from making a sound. Everything in me wants to turn toward him, to let myself have this moment fully, but I don't trust myself not to want more than he's offering. Instead, I stare at the ceiling, at the dancing shadows cast by the flickering hallway light, and try to memorize every detail of this moment. The weight of him beside me, the sound of his breathing, the way the blanket rises and falls with the rhythm of his chest. The particular quality of silence that exists in the space between sleeping and waking, where anything seems possible and nothing has to be explained. Tomorrow, we'll have to navigate whatever this was. Tomorrow, there will be questions I don't know how to answer and implications I'm not ready to face. But right now, in the darkness of our shared room, with Caleb warm and solid beside me, tomorrow feels very far away. The morning arrives gray and ordinary, filtering through our single window like everything from the night before was just another dream. Caleb wakes in his own bed, stretching and yawning like he never left it. I watch him from across the room as I pull on yesterday's jeans, searching his face for some sign that last night meant something, that the memory of his weight beside me wasn't something I imagined in the space between sleep and consciousness. But there's nothing. He sits up, runs his hands through his hair, and asks if I remember to set the coffee maker like it's any other Thursday morning. His voice carries no trace of the roughness it had when he whispered about being cold, no acknowledgement of the 3 hours we spent sharing the same small space, breathing the same recycled air. This is how we've always been, Caleb and me. He moves through moments without carrying them, while I collect each interaction like stones in my pocket, turning them over and over until they're smooth with handling. It's what makes us work as roommates, this fundamental difference in how we process the world. He experiences, I analyze. He acts. I consider the consequences of acting. I am methodical by nature, the kind of person who color codes his class schedule and keeps his textbooks arranged by subject and publication date. My biology major suits me perfectly. All systems and structures, predictable patterns that can be memorized and understood. There's comfort in the periodic table, in the way cellular respiration follows the same pathway every time, in the reliability of scientific method. Variables can be controlled. Outcomes can be predicted. Caleb is pure chaos theory made flesh. He's a theater student, which explains everything and nothing about who he is. His half of the room looks like a hurricane passed through it. Scripts scattered across his desk, costume pieces draped over his chair, a collection of character shoes that never quite make it back into his closet. He thrives on uncertainty, on the moment when anything could happen and usually does. Where I make lists, he makes impulse decisions. Where I double-check my schedule, he shows up to auditions he forgot he'd sign up for and somehow lands the lead. We met during orientation week, thrown together by the random algorithm of university housing. I remember thinking we'd last maybe a month before one of us requested a room change. He was too loud, too present, taking up space in ways I wasn't used to sharing. But somehow, against all logic, we found a rhythm. I ground him when his restlessness threatens to pull him apart. He pulls me into moments I would otherwise miss entirely, moments that exist only in the spaces between my carefully planned schedule. Late-night conversations that start about nothing and end up somewhere profound. Impromptu trips to the 24-hour diner off campus when the dining hall food becomes unbearable. The way he'll grab my hand and drag me to see some street musician performing outside the library, insisting that this is more important than whatever assignment I'm rushing to complete. Our friendship has always been comfortable in its contradictions. Easy laughter spilling out of our room at hours when the rest of the dorm is trying to sleep. Shared complaints about Professor Martinez's impossible organic chemistry exams and the way the showers never get hot enough. The ritual of splitting a package of instant ramen and pretending it's a real meal, sitting cross-legged on his unmade bed because mine is covered with study materials. But beneath all of that comfort, I've carried something else. Something dangerous and unspoken that makes me catch my breath when he stretches in the morning and his shirt rides up, revealing a strip of skin I'm not supposed to notice. The way my heart speeds up when he throws his arm around my shoulders walking across campus. Casual and thoughtless, like affection is just another language he speaks fluently. I've learned to be careful around Caleb's warmth the way you're careful around fire, close enough to feel the heat, never close enough to get burned. Because Caleb's warmth has always been dangerous to me, a constant reminder of everything I want and can't have, everything I feel and can't name. He moves through the world assuming friendship, assuming safety, assuming that the way I look at him sometimes is just the way friends look at each other. And maybe he's right. Maybe I've built something out of nothing, read meaning into moments that were only ever meant to be simple. Maybe the way he laughs at my jokes, the way he remembers how I take my coffee, the way he automatically saves me a seat in the dining hall. Maybe it's all just friendship, and I'm the one making it complicated. But last night felt different. Last night, the careful distance I've maintained collapsed under the weight of his presence beside me. For 3 hours, I lay awake listening to him breathe, feeling the steady rhythm of his chest rising and falling, and I couldn't pretend it was nothing. Couldn't pretend my heart wasn't pounding so loud I was certain it would wake him. Couldn't pretend I didn't want to turn toward him to close whatever small distance still existed between us, to find out what would happen if I stopped being so careful all the time. Now, watching him brush his teeth at our shared sink, I feel the weight of those 3 hours sitting heavy in my chest. He catches my eye in the mirror and grins, toothpaste foaming at the corners of his mouth, and for a moment I almost believe that nothing has changed, that we can go back to the way things were, to the safety of our established boundaries and unspoken rules. But then he rinses his mouth and turns to me, and there's something in his expression I can't quite read. Something that wasn't there yesterday morning, a flicker of awareness that makes my pulse quicken despite every rational thought telling me I'm imagining things. Your bed really is warmer, he says, and the words are casual, throwaway, but the way he says them isn't casual at all. There's weight behind them, intention, like he's testing something we've never had to test before. I manage to shrug, to keep my voice steady when I tell him it's probably just the proximity to the radiator. But even as I say it, I know we're both aware it's not true. My bed isn't warmer because of its location or the way heat moves through a small room. It's warmer because he was in it. The second night, I tell myself it was a coincidence. I'm lying in bed reading about cellular mitosis, highlighter in hand, when a mattress dips again. This time I'm not startled. Some part of me has been waiting, listening for the soft pad of his feet across the cold linoleum, for the whisper of blankets being disturbed. Caleb slides under my covers like it's a continuation of a conversation we started the night before, one conducted entirely in the language of shared warmth and unspoken permission. Still cold, he murmurs, but there's something almost playful in his voice now, like he knows I know this isn't really about the temperature. The heating unit is working better tonight, filling our small room with a steady hum of forced air, but he presses against me anyway, seeking something that has nothing to do with warmth and everything to do with the way we fit together in this narrow space. The third night, I don't even pretend to be surprised. I finish my reading early and lie in the dark waiting. When he comes, I lift the blanket without being asked, and he settles beside me with a soft sigh that sounds like coming home. We don't speak. We don't need to. The ritual is establishing itself, creating its own logic that exists outside of rational explanation. By the end of the first week, it's become routine. Caleb no longer offers excuses about the cold or the broken heater. He simply appears at the edge of my bed when the dorm settles into its late-night quiet, and I make room for him without question. Sometimes he brings his phone, scrolling through social media while I try to focus on tomorrow's assignment. Sometimes he just lies there, staring at the ceiling, his breathing gradually synchronizing with mine until we're moving together like a single organism. "You're like a heater," he says one night, draping his arm across my chest in a gesture so casual it stops my heart entirely. His fingers rest against my ribs, and I can feel my pulse hammering against his palm, betraying every careful thought I've tried to construct about what this means and doesn't mean. Best roommate perk ever. I laugh, because that's what he expects, what the moment requires to stay light and manageable. But the laughter feels hollow in my throat, a sound designed to hide the way I'm slowly coming apart under the weight of his arm, under the impossible intimacy of sharing breath and body heat, and the small sounds he makes when he's drifting towards sleep. The weeks fold into each other, November giving way to the first hints of December cold. Our days continue unchanged. Classes and meals and study sessions, the ordinary rhythm of college life that carries us from morning to night. But our nights have become something else entirely, a parallel existence that operates by different rules, different possibilities. In daylight, we're still the same people we've always been. Caleb bounds into our room after rehearsal, full of stories about drama department politics and the impossibility of memorizing Shaw. I listen while organizing my notes for the next day, asking the right questions, playing my part in the comfortable script of our friendship. Nothing has changed, and everything has changed, and we both pretend not to notice the tension that lives in the space between those two truths. But at night, when the campus settles and the fluorescent lights dim in the hallway, we become different versions of ourselves. Caleb grows quiet and thoughtful, less performative, like darkness gives him permission to let down whatever guard he carries during the day. I stop measuring my words so carefully, stop analyzing every interaction for signs of meaning or lack thereof. We exist in a bubble of shared warmth where the rules of daytime friendship don't quite apply. The catalyst comes on a Thursday night in early December, when snow is just beginning to stick to our window and the heating unit has given up entirely. Caleb appears beside my bed later than usual, shivering genuinely for the first time in weeks. He slides under the blanket with less ceremony than usual, pressing close with something that feels like relief, like gratitude. I've been working on a lab report, laptop balanced on my knees, but his arrival scatters my concentration entirely. He settles against me with his head tucked into the curve of my shoulder, and I can smell the cold winter air still clinging to his hair, can feel the chill radiating from his skin through his thin t-shirt. For a moment, we lie still, waiting for his body to absorb the warmth I've been hoarding under the blankets. His breathing is uneven, not quite steady like he's been running or holding his breath for a very long time. I save my document and close the laptop, setting it carefully on a nightstand, aware that this feels different somehow, more intentional than our previous nights together. You always make me feel safe, he murmurs, and his voice is soft and vulnerable in a way I've never heard before. Half asleep, unguarded, speaking to my shoulder rather than my face. The words drift between us in the darkness like something fragile, something that might disappear if acknowledged too directly. I freeze, my hand halfway to the light switch, unsure if he's talking to me or to the space between sleeping and waking where thoughts sometimes escape without permission. But his arm tightens across my chest, holding me in place, and I realize he's more awake than he sounds. More intentional. You do, he says again, quieter now, like he's testing how the words sound when spoken aloud. Make me feel safe. I don't know how to respond to that. Don't know what it means or what he wants me to do with it. Safe from what? Safe from the cold, from the unpredictability of his own restless energy, from something larger and more complicated that neither of us has learned to name? I want to ask, but the question feels too big for the small space we've created, too dangerous for the careful balance we've been maintaining. Instead, I reach over and turn off the light, plunging us into the familiar darkness that has become our sanctuary. Caleb settles deeper against me with a sound like contentment, like relief, and I lie awake long after his breathing evens out, replaying those words over and over until they've worn grooves in my consciousness. You always make me feel safe. I stare at the ceiling and wonder what it means that safety, for Caleb, looks like this, like shared warmth and synchronized breathing, like the weight of another person's presence in the dark. I wonder if he knows what safety looks like for me, if he can feel the way my heart steadies when he's beside me, the way the anxious noise in my head finally quiets when I know he's close enough to touch. I wonder if we're talking about the same thing at all, or if we're both using the word safety to mean something else entirely, something neither of us is ready to name in the harsh light of day. Something shifts after that night, subtle as the way December light changes the quality of our small room. The routine that began as coincidence has become expectation, an unspoken agreement that governs our evenings like gravity governs falling objects. Neither of us acknowledges it directly, but we both feel the weight of it in the space between dinner and sleep, in the careful way we navigate our usual activities while aware of what waits at the end of each day. During daylight hours, we maintain the same rhythms we've always kept. Caleb rushes off to morning classes with his hair still damp from the shower, scripts tucked under his arm, and coffee balanced precariously in a travel mug that's seen better days. I walk to biology lab with my equipment already organized in color-coded containers, my notebook tabbed and indexed for maximum efficiency. We eat lunch together in the dining hall when our schedules align, complaining about professors and comparing notes about weekend plans. But underneath the familiar patterns of friendship, something new is growing. I catch myself watching him differently, not just listening to his stories about theater department drama, but studying the way his hands move when he talks, the way his eyes light up when he describes a particularly challenging scene. There's an intimacy to observation that I've never allowed myself before, a permission to really see him that feels both liberating and terrifying. He seems different too, though I can't pinpoint exactly how. More aware, maybe, of the space between us when we're sitting together. More likely to let conversations trail into comfortable silence instead of filling every pause with words. Sometimes I catch him looking at me with an expression I can't quite decipher, something thoughtful and uncertain that disappears as soon as our eyes meet. At night, though, the pretense falls away entirely. By the time the dorm settles into its late evening quiet, we've both stopped questioning what we're doing and simply begun anticipating it. I finish my reading and wait, laptop closed, room dim except for the soft glow of the streetlight filtering through our window. When Caleb appears at the edge of my bed, I lift the blanket automatically, and he slides in beside me like water finding its level. The ritual has evolved beyond simple warmth sharing. Now he brings his phone sometimes, showing me videos that made him laugh or articles about plays he wants to see. We scroll through social media together, his chin resting on my shoulder as we judge our classmates' weekend adventures. Other times, he just lies there, staring at the ceiling while I pretend to read, both of us acutely aware of every small movement, every shift in breathing. Our bodies are learning each other in ways that have nothing to do with conscious thought. I know now that he always rolls onto his left side when he's truly falling asleep, that his breathing changes rhythm about 10 minutes before he's fully unconscious. He seems to understand instinctively how I need to position my arm to avoid it going numb, how much space to leave so I can still reach my water glass on the nightstand. The learning is mutual and wordless, conducted entirely through small adjustments and accommodations. When he drapes his arm across my chest now, it settles into a groove that seems designed for that exact purpose. When I shift to make more room, he follows the movement naturally, maintaining contact without conscious effort. We're becoming something together, some hybrid organism that exists only in these nighttime hours. The transformation is gradual enough that I can almost convince myself it's imaginary, that I'm reading significance in a simple comfort in shared space. But then there are moments that feel unmistakably different, charged with possibility in ways that make my heart race and my hands shake. Like the night his hand drifts lower while he's sleeping, coming to rest against my stomach with a weight that seems intentional despite his unconscious state. His palm is warm through my t-shirt, and I lie perfectly still, afraid to breathe too deeply, afraid any movement will wake him and force us both to acknowledge what's happening. But part of me wants him to wake up, wants to see what he'll do when he realizes where his hand is settled, whether he'll pull away or press closer. He doesn't wake, but his hand stays there for hours, rising and falling with my breathing, and I spend the entire night hyper-aware of every small movement, every tiny shift in pressure. In the morning, he wakes in his own bed as always, with no memory of the night's geography, but something in his expression suggests he remembers more than he's willing to admit. The guilt that follows these moments is sharp and immediate. During the day, when Caleb laughs at something I've said or throws his arm around my shoulders walking across campus, I feel like I'm stealing something that doesn't belong to me, taking advantage of trust he's offered freely, reading desire into gestures that are probably nothing more than friendship expressed through physical comfort. But the guilt isn't strong enough to make me stop waiting for him each night, isn't powerful enough to make me suggest we return to our separate beds and proper boundaries. Because alongside the guilt lives something else, a growing certainty that this arrangement is changing him too, that whatever we're creating together exists in the space between both our intentions. He begins choosing my bed before his own, even on nights when the heating is working perfectly, even when there's no logical reason for him to seek additional warmth. He settles beside me with increasing familiarity, like he belongs there, like the space was always meant to accommodate both of us despite being designed for one. And I begin to believe, tentatively, carefully, with the same methodical approach I bring to everything else, that maybe this isn't about the cold at all. Maybe it never was. Maybe we've both been using temperature as an excuse for something neither of us knows how to ask for directly, something that requires the cover of practical necessity to make itself known. The thought should terrify me more than it does. Instead, it settles into my chest like warmth spreading through cold water, like recognition of something I've been trying not to hope for since the first night he appeared beside me. We're transforming into something new, something that exists only in these shared hours of darkness. And for the first time, I'm not afraid of what we might become. The revelation comes on a Tuesday night in mid-December, when the first real snow of the season is falling outside our window in thick, silent flakes that turn the campus into something from postcard. I've been asleep for maybe an hour when something pulls me back to consciousness. Not a sound exactly, but a quality of attention in the darkness beside me that feels different from Caleb's usual sleeping presence. I surface slowly from dreams I can't quite remember, aware first of warmth, then of weight, then of the particular way the mattress holds two bodies instead of one. My eyes adjust to the darkness gradually, and I realize Caleb is awake beside me, has been awake for who knows how long, watching me in the dim light that filters through her snow-covered window. Our faces are inches apart on the single pillow we've been unconsciously sharing, close enough that I can feel his breath against my cheek, warm and steady and deliberately controlled. There's something in his expression I've never seen before, something vulnerable and determined at the same time, like he's made a decision but isn't entirely sure he has the courage to follow through with it. Neither of us moves. The space between us feels charged with possibility and danger, with all the words we've never said and all the boundaries we've been carefully not crossing for weeks. I can hear my own heartbeat in my ears, can feel the way my breathing has become shallow and uneven under the weight of his attention. Do you ever think about it? He whispers, and his voice is barely audible, like he's afraid the words might shatter something fragile that's been building between us. The question hangs in the air like the snow outside our window, suspended and delicate and impossible to take back once it's been released into the world. I know what he's asking before he clarifies, can feel the weight of it in the small space between our bodies, in the way his eyes search my face for some sign of understanding. But he continues anyway, his voice even softer now, like he's sharing a secret he's never told anyone before. About us like this. What it means. My throat goes completely dry. Every careful wall I've built around my feelings, every rational explanation I've constructed for what we've been doing crumbles in the space of those few words. Because of course I think about it. I've thought about nothing else for weeks, have analyzed every touch and every shared breath and every moment of comfortable silence until I've worn the thoughts smooth with handling. I can't lie to him, not when he's looking at me like this. Not when we're so close I can count his eyelashes in the dim light. I nod, barely, the smallest possible acknowledgement of a truth I've been carrying alone for so long, it's become part of my basic architecture. The admission changes something in his expression, makes him look both relieved and terrified, like he's been hoping for this answer and dreading it in equal measure. The air between us seems to thicken, to become something tangible that carries weight and possibility and the electric potential of everything we've been pretending not to want. He shifts slightly, and suddenly we're even closer, close enough that the tip of his nose almost brushes mine, close enough that I can see the way his pupils have dilated in the darkness. My heart is hammering against my ribs, so hard I'm certain he can feel it through the thin fabric of my t-shirt, through whatever microscopic distance still exists between us. This is the moment I realize. This is the place where everything changes or everything stays exactly the same, where we either acknowledge what's been building between us or retreat back into the safety of pretending none of it means anything. The weight of the choice sits heavy in my chest, terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. Caleb seems to be feeling the same internal pressure, the same sense of standing at the edge of something vast and unknown. His breathing has become as uneven as mine, and I can see the pulse beating rapidly at the base of his throat. He looks like he wants to say something else, but the words seem to be stuck somewhere between intention and expression. Instead, he leans closer, testing something, moving with the careful deliberation of someone navigating unmarked territory. His breath brushes across my lips, warm and sweet, and carrying the faint taste of the peppermint tea he drinks before bed. The space between us has narrowed to almost nothing, to the width of a held breath, to the distance of a heartbeat. Neither of us kisses. We hover there in the space, just before contact, suspended in possibility, letting the almost touch speak for everything we haven't been able to say out loud. It's more intimate than any kiss I've ever imagined. This moment of suspended intention, this acknowledgement of want without the commitment of action. I can feel the heat radiating from his skin, can smell the familiar scent of his shampoo, mixed with something deeper and more essential that belongs only to him. My lips are tingling with anticipation, with the phantom sensation of a kiss that hasn't happened but feels inevitable, like gravity waiting to assert itself. The moment stretches between us, elastic and precious and fragile. I'm acutely aware of everything. The way the snow continues to fall outside our window, the distant hum of the heating unit that started this whole thing, the soft sounds of other students moving through the hallway beyond our door. But all of it feels distant and irrelevant compared to the universe that exists in the space between Caleb's mouth and mine. We stay like that for what feels like hours, but is probably only minutes, breathing the same air, sharing the same small pocket of warmth, letting ourselves exist in the place where want and fear and possibility converge. Neither advancing nor retreating, just being present to the truth we've finally allowed into the space between us. The truth is no longer deniable, no longer something we can pretend away in the harsh light of morning. It exists now, solid and undeniable, in the careful way we're not kissing, in the way we're both trembling slightly with the effort of holding ourselves back, in the way neither of us wants to be the first to break whatever spell we've cast over this moment. When we finally pull apart, just slightly, just enough to breathe properly again, the air feels different, charged with acknowledgement and promise and the sweet terror of having finally named the thing we've been dancing around for so long. We don't speak. We don't need to. The silence between us is full of everything we've just admitted without words, heavy with the knowledge that tomorrow will be different, that we've crossed a line we can never uncross. But for now, in the darkness of our shared room, with snow falling outside and the truth finally free in the space between us, different feels like exactly what we've been hoping for all along. The next morning arrives with the particular brightness that follows fresh snow, turning our small room into something almost ethereal. But the light feels harsh after the intimate darkness we shared, and I wake alone in my bed with no memory of when Caleb retreated to his own space. The pillow beside me still holds the faint impression of his head. The blankets still carry his scent, but he's gone, leaving me to wonder if last night was real or just another dream that felt too vivid to dismiss. I lie still for several minutes, staring at the ceiling and trying to piece together the sequence of events that led from almost kissing to waking up alone. Did he regret the moment of vulnerability? Did I somehow misread the entire situation, project my own desires onto his careful questions and hesitant proximity? The uncertainty sits heavy in my chest, making it difficult to breathe properly. When Caleb finally stirs in his own bed, stretching and yawning like any other morning, I search his face for some sign of what passed between us in the darkness. But there's nothing, or rather, there's a careful blankness, a deliberate neutrality that feels more telling than any expression would have been. He avoids my eyes as he pulls on yesterday's jeans, keeps his voice aggressively casual when he asks if I want to grab breakfast before his morning class. The day unfolds with a strained quality that makes every interaction feel performative. Caleb cracks jokes too loudly over cafeteria coffee, gestures more broadly when telling stories about his scene partner's inability to remember her lines. He's being himself, but with the volume turned up like he's trying to drown out whatever quieter truth emerged between us last night. I find myself overcompensating in the opposite direction, becoming more reserved and analytical than usual, treating our conversation like a specimen to be examined rather than experienced. We're both performing normalcy, but neither of us is particularly convincing, and the effort of maintaining the charade leave me exhausted before noon. He avoids our room for most of the day, staying late at rehearsal and then disappearing to the library with a stack of books he probably doesn't need. I spend the evening alone, trying to focus on a chemistry problem set, but mostly staring at the empty space where he should be, wondering if I've ruined the best friendship I've ever had by wanting more than it was designed to contain. By 10 o'clock, I've convinced myself that last night was a mistake, that the careful boundaries we've maintained were there for good reason, that some things are too fragile to survive the weight of acknowledgement. By 11, I'm certain he's found somewhere else to sleep, some friend's couch or study lounge where he won't have to navigate the complicated geography of our shared space. But then just past midnight, I hear his key in the door. He enters quietly, moving through our room with the careful precision of someone trying not to wake a sleeping roommate. I lie perfectly still, breathing evenly, pretending to be unconscious while every nerve ending in my body sparks to attention. I hear him brush his teeth, change into sleep clothes, settle into his own bed with the usual creak of institutional furniture. For a long moment, There's nothing but the familiar sounds of the dorm at night, distant music from someone's room, the elevator cycling through floors, the heating unit beginning another of its mechanical complaints. I start to relax, to accept that we're returning to our old pattern of separate beds and careful distance, when I hear movement again. Caleb is sitting up at his bed. I can feel his attention across the narrow space between us, can sense him looking at me in the darkness. My breathing wants to change rhythm, wants to betray my wakefulness, but I force myself to maintain the illusion of sleep. He stands, and my heart begins to race. Footsteps across the cold linoleum, then the familiar dip of my mattress as he sits on the edge of my bed. But he doesn't slide under the blanket immediately, doesn't settle beside me with the casual assumption that has characterized our nights for weeks. Instead, he just sits there, and I can feel the weight of his uncertainty, his own internal struggle with whatever decision he's trying to make. When he finally speaks, his voice is barely above a whisper, rough with something that might be fear or determination or both. I don't want to pretend I'm cold anymore. He admits to the darkness, to my supposedly sleeping form, to the space between honesty and safety that night provides. The words carry the weight of confession, of surrender, of choosing vulnerability over the comfort of plausible deniability. I just want to be next to you. The admission hangs in the air between us, simple and devastating and brave in ways I didn't know he was capable of being. It's everything I've hoped to hear and everything I've been afraid to want, stripped of pretense and excuse and the careful rationalization that has allowed us to share this space without acknowledging what it means. This is the moment of truth, the place where we either step forward into whatever we're becoming or retreat back into the safety of friendship and separate beds and pretending none of this ever happened. The choice sits between us like a bridge we can either cross or burn. I open my eyes and look at him sitting on the edge of my bed, his silhouette outlined by the faint light from our window. He's watching me with an expression I can't quite read, something between hope and terror, waiting for some sign of what I want, what I'm willing to risk for the possibility of more. Without a word, I lift the blanket. It's the smallest gesture and the largest one I've ever made, an invitation that contains every feeling I've been too afraid to voice, every one I've been too careful to acknowledge. The space I create beside me isn't just physical. It's emotional, psychological, a room for him to exist in ways our friendship has never quite accommodated. Caleb slides in beside me, but this time it's different. There's no pretense about temperature or practical necessity. He moves closer than he ever has before, and I don't hold myself rigid with the fear of wanting too much. Instead, I let my arm wrap around him naturally, pulling him against me in a gesture that feels like claiming and being claimed simultaneously. He settles against my chest with a sound like relief, like homecoming, his head fitting into the hollow of my shoulder as if it was designed for that exact purpose. His hand comes to rest over my heart, and I know he can feel how fast it's beating, can sense the way my entire body has come alive under his touch. The choice is made, not in words, but in the quiet acceptance of everything we've been denying, everything we've been afraid to want. We lie together in the darkness of our room, no longer pretending that cold is what brings us together, no longer hiding behind practical explanations for impractical desires. For the first time since this all began, I'm not waiting for morning to come and force us back into the shapes of people who are just friends. For the first time, I'm not afraid of what daylight might reveal about what we've become in the dark. We are something new now, something that exists in honesty rather than excuse, in choice rather than coincidence. And lying here with Caleb warm and solid in my arms, I finally understand that some transformations can only happen when we stop being afraid of what we might become. 3 weeks later, on a January night when the semester has resumed and the campus has settled back into its winter rhythm, I lie in the same bed where everything began. But now the space feels entirely different, not stolen or borrowed or justified by practical necessity, but ours in ways I'm still learning to understand. Caleb rests his head against my chest, his dark hair soft under my chin, his breathing deep, and even the way that tells me he's genuinely asleep rather than just resting. His hand lies flat against my ribs, fingers spread wide like he's claiming territory, like he's making sure I'm real and solid and still here when morning comes. The weight of him has become familiar in ways that go deeper than habit, essential in ways I couldn't have imagined when this all started. The heating unit still rattles with the same mechanical wheeze it's made since September. But now the sound feels comforting rather than annoying, a constant that connects this moment to all the nights that led us here. Outside our window, snow continues to fall in the lazy, purposeless way of winter storms that have nowhere urgent to be, coating the campus in the same pristine white that covered everything the night we finally stopped pretending. I breathe in slowly, deliberately, taking in the scent of his shampoo, mixed with something warmer and more complex that belongs only to him. My free hand rests against his shoulder blade, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breathing, the way his body relaxes completely against mine when sleep takes him. There's an intimacy to watching someone sleep that I never understood before, the vulnerability of unconsciousness, the trust required to let down every guard in another person's presence. We never did define what this is, never sat down for the kind of conversation that would give us words and labels and clear boundaries to navigate. Instead, we've let it evolve organically, naturally, like something that was always meant to exist once we stopped being afraid of it. During the day, we're still roommates, still friends who share meals and complain about professors and laugh at inside jokes no one else understands. But underneath that familiar foundation, something deeper has taken root. The change is subtle enough that our friends haven't noticed, or if they have, they haven't commented. We don't hold hands walking across campus or kiss goodbye before classes. We don't make grand declarations or post couple photos on social media. What we have exists primarily in these quiet moments, in the space between wake and sleep, in a language of touch and presence that doesn't require an audience to be real. But it is real, more real than anything I've ever felt before. Real in the way Caleb automatically saves me a seat in the dining hall, but now his knee brushes mine under the table and stays there. Real in the way he borrows my hoodies and returns them smelling like his cologne, like he's marking them as territory we both inhabit. Real in the way we've stopped talking about separate beds entirely, stopped pretending that the single mattress we share each night is anything other than a choice we make together. Sometimes, in the hour before dawn, when the campus is at its quietest, I lie awake and marvel at how we got here. How a simple complaint about being cold became this complex architecture of intimacy and trust and careful tenderness. How two people who seemed so fundamentally different found ways to fit together that neither of us could have planned or predicted. Caleb shifts in his sleep, his arm tightening around my waist, and makes a small sound of contentment that goes straight to my heart. Even unconscious, he gravitates toward warmth, toward closeness, toward the kind of connection that started as physical necessity and transformed into something infinitely more valuable. I wonder sometimes if he dreams about these moments, if his sleeping mind processes the same wonder I feel at having found someone who fits so perfectly into spaces I didn't know were empty. The future stretches ahead of us, uncertain in all the ways that futures always are. We'll graduate eventually, find jobs in different cities perhaps, navigate the complications of adult life that seem impossibly distant from this small room and these quiet nights. But lying here with Caleb warm and solid in my arms, the future feels less frightening than it used to. Whatever changes come, we'll face them from this foundation of trust and tenderness we've built together, one shared breath at a time. I think about the person I was before this started, careful and measured and so afraid of wanting the wrong things that I barely let myself want anything at all. That version of myself feels like a stranger now, someone I knew once, but have outgrown in fundamental ways. Caleb has taught me that some risks are worth taking, that some hungers are meant to be fed, that the space between friendship and love isn't a chasm to be feared, but a bridge to be crossed with patience and courage. The clock on my nightstand shows 3:17 in the morning, and I should probably try to sleep. We both have early classes tomorrow, responsibilities that will pull us back into the daylight world of schedules and expectations. But I'm reluctant to let go of this moment, this perfect encapsulation of everything we've become and everything we're still becoming. Caleb stirs slightly, his fingers tightening against my ribs, and murmurs something I can't quite make out. But the tone is content, satisfied, like whatever he's dreaming is good. I press a soft kiss to the top of his head, tasting winter air and something indefinably sweet, and let myself drift towards sleep. In a few hours, we'll wake up together for real, officially, without pretense or explanation. We'll share the morning ritual of showers and coffee and the eternal search for clean clothes. We'll walk to class together, part ways at the science building, meet for lunch if our schedules allow. But right now, in the quiet darkness of our room, with snow falling outside and the heating unit keeping its faithful vigil, we exist in the space we've created together. A space where cold was just the excuse we needed to find each other, where two separate beds became one shared sanctuary, where the distance between friendship and love turned out to be no distance at all. My hand finds his in the darkness, our fingers interlacing with the easy familiarity of bodies that have learned to speak the same language. We hold on each other as sleep comes, no longer afraid of what morning might bring, no longer pretending we don't need exactly this. Each other, this warmth, this quiet revolution that began with the simple words, "I'm freezing," and became everything we never knew we were looking for.